Hello, guys. Welcome to another episode of the e-commerce lab by Ecomcy, the place where A related to Amazon FBA product level and e-commerce. My name is Vincenzo Toscano, founder and CEO of Ecomcy, and today we bring another special guest. His name is Jochen, and he's the CEO and founder of SIMPI, where they specialize on everything that has to do with the post-purchase experience of any product that you sell online. And I think that's something that I'm really keen to hear some of the takes that Jochen can bring for today's episode, because we know that everything that has to do with negative reviews, the experience of a customer after the buy, and so on is something that, especially if you're selling on Amazon or platform where reviews are very important, is something that if you don't tackle fast enough, it can really take a big toll on your brand. So that's why we're going to discuss, what are some of the strategies, what are some of the things that are working, and more importantly, how solutions such as Simply can make it easier for you. So, yeah, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Thanks for having me. Pretty good. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, same. So I guess for those that might not know you, just give us a brief introduction, maybe on top of what I already just said, and we can dive into the topic. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So, Jochen Hildebrandt from SIMPI. We founded SIMPI 5 years ago already. I do have an engineering background, and everything that we did, basically not just with SIMPI, but also with the company prior, it was always connected to explaining products to customers, how they work actually, where the value is. And we did this in an enterprise setting for medical and semiconductor business. And then actually confronted by my coffee machine that wanted to be descaled again. Not knowing a clue how, not remembering, and then searching out on YouTube, etc. The idea of SIMPI was born. Basically, what if you had something like an instruction, like a TikTok? You just go through this is the important stuff. You don't have to read. You don't, if you know where the manual is. So this is how it started, and then we started with the medical. And but 2 years ago, we thought that there's quite some opportunity in post-purchase experience management for the e-commerce. This is how it all started, and this is when I went more into the specific business of sellers and DTC brands.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for that. And I think now is a perfect moment to jump into the topic I mentioned, which is, kind of figuring out how to maximize the post-purchase experience, because I really think that's what potentially is making or breaking brands. So I guess to start with a brief introduction, about what is been happening around those lines. Tell me, what are you seeing in this space? Like how brands are tackling this? Do you see brands being more on top of the post-purchase experience that they used to, because they know clients are getting very savvy in terms of reviews, in terms of complaints or anything? Or what are you seeing overall in the market as of now?
Yeah, so there's one pattern that I saw, especially in e-commerce, which is everyone's optimizing on the sale, obviously. So they're spending six figures on ads, on listing, on photos, and everything. Then customers actually buy the product, receive the box, open the box, and if you're not there in step 3, where the customer actually is confused or doesn't know how this thing works, or the expectation is completely wrong, then she may close the box and return it, right away. The label didn't work. So the product is completely fine, and everything that you spent on marketing it was completely fine, but the instructions weren't. And this is something that so far, so like I said, we did projects in the consumer industry, medical. They didn't care about what happens post-purchase. But now they find with everything pre-purchase is so optimized already, and everyone's squeezing out everything with AI tools, etc. The larger gain may be in this post-purchase experience, where you tie customers to your brand, basically, and you're the first actually that gets the click. This is the whole idea, and this is the gap that we try to close with SIMPI.
Now, when it comes to these kind of strategies that we're gonna start getting into, do you feel this is something that usually, from your experience, applies to any specific type of product on specific? And what I mean by that is maybe this is more feasible for a supplement brand, or maybe for a toy brand, or is something that you're seeing that can be used across the board regardless of the product? What is your experience about that?
Yeah. So we started with, and like I said, I'm an engineer background. And I started with, okay, this only applies to products that need to be explained, like here's the coffee machine and here's how to set it up, etc., etc. But then talking to sellers, products got more and more simple that we should address. So one was actually a famous example is one of these phone protector screens that we have, where I said, well, how difficult can it be, to apply phone, but everyone knows how to do this. And then the seller told me, no, ours is different. And we have bubbles, and these bubbles will dissolve in 24 hours. And this is why we get so many returns. And of course, I'm stating it everywhere, so make
Mm,
sure to give it 24 hours. And another example, it was a carpet, where I said, no,
mhm,
really, we don't need to explain what a carpet is. And I said, no, they already decided for the brand, and if it's something like the Love brand, I'm not talking about, I don't know, some kitchen knives or whatever, what have
yeah.
you. But they decided for a brand and they open a package, and the experience is there needs to be something else. I want to talk to this brand, I want to engage with the brand, and just make this decision for this brand. But very often there's nothing. So take out the product and maybe are a little disappointed. So this is when sellers convinced me and brands convinced me, no, it doesn't make sense that we offer them something, to see, and at least it's hey, this is welcome, and here again, this is why you bought the thing, and by the way, this is how it works, and by the way, if something goes wrong, we're here to help, something like this. So it's much more a marketing thing than an attempt to do the perfect instructions.
Nice. Now, in terms of when it comes to strategies, right? I think I would love to start touching to those. Because so far, of course, we have talked about importance, some of the examples as you just mentioned. I think strategy is something that I'm sure people are very keen, because when it comes to that, and of course, depending on the products we also touch on, I'm assuming the strategy might take a slight turn. Like what I mean is maybe the post purchase experience that you're going to do for, again, a supplement brand is not going to be the same that you're going to do for a toy brand. Maybe one is more around instructions, one is more about a bonus, one is more about a customer service. So I'm very keen to know, especially the way you guys most likely tackle this as Simpi. What is kind of the methodology that you put in place to make sure that you have a system that, when it comes to a strategy, is tailored to the specific needs of that kind of consumer, I guess, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we call it in technical terms, we call it a post-purchase content layer, basically. But where how it works is you take the product information that you have. So typically it's a manual. Typically it can be a listing where you have bullet points why this is great. And then the system takes all this information and creates what we call a product walkthrough. It's like a step-by-step instruction, whatever you want to call it. We call it product walkthrough. This is everything that customers need to be successful in their first steps. Obviously, yes, you could link to marketing and you can have other promotions, etc. Yes, you can do this, but to be super sharp, we're focusing on the avoidance of the return. The avoidance of a one-star review didn't work thing. So this is the first that we're focusing on. And this is how it works. So you have this built, you get a
Mm-hmm.
guided instruction on per step. On you take your phone and you get guided instructions. First, I need to have an image or a 5-second video of this blood pressure monitor, how you open the battery case, the next step, and then there's voice output, and there's also a description where it says then insert the batteries, and then the system will tell you, okay, now I need to have a photo of these batteries. You pack everything together, it's automatically translated. You print out a QR code, you put it on your box, and that's it, actually. So this is
Okay.
the go.
Now, when it comes to compliance, because this is something we get asked a lot, is like, I need to make sure it's compliant either to Amazon or Walmart or Shopify or whatever the platform you're selling on. Like, I'm assuming there's things that you can do on one that you cannot do on another one, right? So, and I want to briefly also bring that to the conversation, because I want to first start with maybe what are some of the methodologies that you see are more kind of a proof across multiple platforms compared to the ones that maybe are more tailored to a specific platform. So can we briefly touch on, for example, Amazon, right? Just to choose one, like how you seen Amazon maybe tackling some of these things, because I'm sure you have seen that they want to make sure you don't talk to consumers, that you don't change reviews, all that kind of stuff. So how you seeing this potentially being an issue, you know?
Yeah. Obviously, we need to be 100% compliant from our side. What the seller or the brand does is completely theirs. And so you can have, so you go through this walkthrough, and then probably on the last step, you may say as a brand, you may say, and now we have these other products, or we have an extension, or there's something more you can buy. If you then link back to Amazon, that's completely fine, you know. So obviously Amazon or all the other platforms, they state the customer belongs to us. So you're not allowed to redirect that customer to your own shop, whatever. But this is completely up to the seller. And I talked to sellers where they said, and I think you know the rationale behind it. Oh, this is the perfect thing, actually. So we scan the QR code, or we tell our customers they scan the QR code, you get a quick intro. And this is what people do because they're interested in getting the thing to work. And then once we have them engaged, and there's no app, there's no login, there's no download. So it's just the QR code, and it pops up in your browser. So in the language of that user. And then they say, well, but this is the perfect spot, you know, to redirect them to my shop, you know, and or to, and this is what other sellers do, and they compare what they put into the package, where they say, here, let me, I'll put in a link where you can sign up for my newsletter, for example. So there's possibilities that exist, because from our side, it's just a link, it's merely a link. And what the seller does is completely up to her, basically what type, and then it's obviously also up to their risk taking, whether it's compliant with the platform or whether it's not.
Awesome. Now, when it comes to the methodology that you mentioned, like I'm gonna bring some of them very quickly. Like for example, QR code, or maybe having some kind of a ref tag or anything along those lines. Is there some examples on top of your head that you feel are working the best to promote as much engagement as possible? And what I mean by that is there some kind of, maybe when you open the box, you have very kind of bold label that screams engage with me, or maybe a QR code that the only way you can scan this QR code is without breaking the packaging, or maybe something that is in between the packaging and the product, that if you don't do this registration, you can look up and use the product. So what are some of the things that you're feeling work the best to have this post-purchase experience? Because I'm sure you're also seeing this, that a lot of time people buy a product and they don't even read the instructions, and sometimes difficult to create that engagement. So is there something that you see working the most to promote that engagement as much as possible? Yeah.
Yeah. So first, great question. It's all about and since this coronavirus, the acceptance of QR codes has increased a lot, you know, and I really everything with it. But yes, it depends. First part of the question is, the answer is, it depends on the product that you have. So there could be, make sure you scan this QR code before you connect it to Bluetooth, something like this. So this is more just this warning thing. And it needs to be super clear that this is about setup instructions, and not this is your website, or this is where you can buy other stuff from me. So this needs to be super clear. We're happy to hear. We're happy about to hear back. Scan this for a quick intro. So this is typically what they do. Second part of the answer is, rather than relying on this QR code. I mean, the QR code, as you know, is only a link, you know, to our SIMPI format. So this is not a video. What we do is not PDF. So it's something in between. We have interactive steps that you swipe, that can be exported to a video, for example. So you could have the same steps exported as video and put it on your listing. You could as well put this out on social media. So you do not really rely solely on the scan of the QR code. It could be in different locations. It could also be on your support site, if this is something that customers typically work with. So you have different spots where you can place these, Pinterest or even TikTok, to get attraction, and to also, if those brands are, or if those customers are looking for information, that the probability is high that they get the content that you are in control of.
Okay. And on these things you're mentioning when it comes to keeping, of course, the control of the consumers and all the data, I'm also keen to, and this very is something that I'm sure you get asked a lot. Like in our case, that we're in Europe, we know that anything that we do with consumers is a bit more limited, and the control that we have over them compared to USA, that you can do anything. You can SMS, email them, you can even knock on the door if you want.
Yeah.
And there's not really data protection in the USA. In Europe, there's many more things that take place for that to be prevented. So, do you also see Europe being a bit more tricky as well with some of these things compared to USA, or at least on the examples we have discussed, it's usually not an issue?
Yeah. So, actually not, because we're compliant here. So we're not a backdoor to collect customer data. So we're not tracking anything. Basically, we don't have cookies as long as they're not super technically needed. And it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't require a sign up, a sign in, download the app or whatever. So we really can only track how many customers actually scanned QR code or came to the SIMPI from other places. What you can do as a seller or as a brand is use one of those link shorteners, basically, where you say it's a QR code. They first land on my on my server, or in this Bitly, whatever you have, where you then can track country, where they come from, etc., etc. This, of course, and then basically forward that link to SIMPI. But this is something that we deliberately said we're not going to do this to get customer trust. So if they're looking at the SIMPI, we're not giving or tracking any data, which makes us completely compliant to data protection rules, especially in Europe.
Cool. Now, in terms of timelines to implement some of the things we have discussed today, because sometimes people is also want to be mindful. I want to be ready for Q4, or want to be ready for Prime Day. I mean, Prime Day, you are a bit late now, but all the seasonal days are coming in this calendar year. Like, is there something you recommend to allocate yourself to be ready on time? Like, this is something that will take you a month to set up correctly, 2 months. What is your rule of thumb when it comes to that?
Actually, pretty quickly. We have three models. It really depends on, and this was born out of necessity. So it's a do-it-yourself platform, so you can help yourself completely, which smaller sellers very often take advantage of. Or we have a model that an agency, an Amazon agency, is doing is rebranding, basically it's white labeled, is doing all the content by themselves. Since they do have the customer relationship, they do have all the product information already, so they can apply this and sell this as a service to the customers. Or we're having our own agency partner network. So if a customer says, which is very often the case, where they say, okay, Jochen, help us to set it up. These are the programs that we have. We're happy to be the man in the middle, because to review this AI creation or to exchange, if their one image has changed, so they can exchange it themselves. So this is this done with you model, or we have a completely done for you model, where we do everything. Basically, we receive the product, and then an agency of ours independently converts this to a SIMPI.
Cool. Now, to start bringing this to a closure, something I would love to also kind of understand, and especially the ones that are listening and watching this episode today, is how do you measure the success of something like this? And do you measure the success in the way that, for example, your negative reviews decrease, or your engagement improves in terms of people rebuying from you, or maybe deeper than that, it could be reputation in terms of word of mouth and brand awareness? Like, because I'm sure people I'm listening and seeing all this strategy and said this makes sense. I want to move forward, but how do I know this is actually working? Do you have maybe some KPIs or things that you track to make that decision?
Yeah, we do, and it's far from this reputational increase, blah blah. That everyone states, and yes, there may be a correlation to this as well. So first and foremost, and the problem with the system is, since we're not optimizing on loss reduction. So like today, so you have a product that costs you 50 euros, and customers confused, send it back. You lose the 50 euros, you lose the ad spend. You have shipping and handling on your side. And if you're lucky and Amazon accepts the claim, then you maybe get reimbursed like 20 to 30 euros. This is about the size. So this 50 is about the price that 1 month of SIMPI costs you. So if you can avoid one return, this is around the ROI or the break-even point. It really compounds if you have more returns avoided, or if you have better reviews. And this is a signal that we see. So the statistics tell you how often this is accessed clearly, and there's a rising number so people are already looking for this information. And the question is, where would they go if you wouldn't be there? There would be YouTube, send it back, etc. And so this is one data point, but the other one is how many one-star reviews do you get actually? And often this is our ICP or warm. So if there is only one review, and the cost of one bad review, if there is only one where it says, okay, I send it back, product didn't work, instructions were a complete mess, I didn't understand the thing, different than expected. So this is where it really compounds, which is not a line item in your analytics, obviously. But from if you have a problem like this, this is the sweet spot, and the rest is then up to you. If, for example, you set expectations right by uploading one of these exported SIMPI videos to your listing, where then customers don't just see where the value is or how that thing looks, but also, will I be capable to operate it? How difficult is that thing? Can I imagine myself to plug in this router? Oh, it's that easy. Yeah, I think I give it a try. So this is something that is then up to the seller and the brand to judge.
Awesome. That's very useful. So I think that's perfect to bring this to a closure. I think that's, a lot of insights that we have discussed so far, like, what is working, what is not working, kind of some of the expectations and the strategy high level. So I'm sure this is something that you would love to potentially discuss in deeper kind of session with some people that might be interested to actually implement this. So tell us how people can potentially have those sessions with you, in the shape of maybe booking a call with you or having a conversation over email, where people can find you.
Yeah, so we're still in the learning phase. We're doing this for 2 years, but Amazon is huge, and other platforms, as you know, are huge. We have an interest in getting more insights from agencies, as well as sellers and brands of all size. And here we stick to this. So you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find us on the simpi.com website. We do have a free preview where you have all the features available, and only if you want to deploy, meaning you want to print the QR code or export the link or the video, then you need to pay, so you can try it out for yourself. But for the we very often stick to done with you first project. So we make sure that the thing is like a SIMPI should be for maybe 1 or 2 products. And then let the customer judge, basically, not the seller, but really the customer. How often is this clicked, etc., etc. So this is typically how we start, so that every seller and every brand knows exactly where this makes a difference for them, because this can be pretty different based on product.
Perfect, Johan. So that's great. I'm gonna make sure all your information is down below so people can find you and reach out to you. And other than that, I thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for the insights. I'm looking forward to catching up soon. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Jenso.
Thank you. Have a good one. Bye bye. Take care.
Bye.